Welcome to Long Story Short, the podcast where we discuss the movies that I love.
And I put up with.
My name is Mike.
And I'm Jordan.
And this week we are discussing the Scream film franchise.
That's a mouthful.
All 4 films that have come out to date. And how many of them had you seen prior to this?
Well, we have to tell them why first. Because you fuckers voted for it.
Well, and it's fucking spooky month.
And then we put out another poll saying, like, which Scream film do you prefer? And you guys all voted for the first one, except, like, one person. Like, 20 people for Scream 1. And so we
had at least one person vote for Scream 3, which I found interesting.
Who are you?
Identify yourself!
7 hours and 8 minutes of Scream films.
Because you were sad that it was ending and you wanted to know how long you got to enjoy the town of Woodsboro.
By halfway through the third one, I started rooting for Scream, not Sydney.
His name's not Scream.
Ghostface.
You kept calling him Scream the whole movie, and that's not his name, is Ghostface.
I'm gonna do that during this and people are gonna hate me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jordan was definitely rooting for Ghostface by the end of the third one. Just like fucking, I think one of the statements was, just stab her in the head!
Sydney, just die already! End my misery and yours.
But you did like this film franchise as a whole.
Okay, so I've seen the first couple, I guess, but I saw them when I was in 2nd grade, and then I dressed up as, not Scream, Ghostface.
Thank you.
For like 4 more years, and I don't know, my parents letting me see that at age 8.
Yeah, it's a little controversial.
We're not gonna let our child see them, but
he's close.
Turned out normal.
He's close though. Like, he can handle most of these.
It's definitely like
okay, parents, when we say that, we're saying that as parents that probably
we're cool parents.
Something. I don't know. I don't think they're that bad.
So I guess we have to talk about horror movies in general.
Right, it's spooky month.
It's like a Wes Craven film, but this is a slasher horror. Like, it's not, there's not too many jump scares.
Well, like I just told you, I recently watched, we're in the new conversation, long story short, and apparently we're going to have a little bit preamble before we get into the movie too. Because I just recently watched 3 from Hell. Rob Zombie's conclusion to his House of a Thousand Corpses trilogy. And House of a Thousand Corpses, in my honest opinion, is the only one that qualifies as a horror. This, like, that's why I think I'm qualifying what you say.
House is a horror movie, though.
Exactly.
Like, 'cause that's why
I think you need to qualify, and in my opinion, when I think of horrors, I think of slashers. I think of Jason, I think of Michael Myers, I think of Jigsaw. I think of Candyman.
If you're watching our video, you have to look at
Boop,
Mike's
boop,
shirt.
boop, boop. Candyman. It's a joke because it's John Candy and also the Candyman. I had to explain this to someone at work.
And also me.
Look at our YouTube video if you want to know what we're talking about. Boop.
I would like an opinion on this whole horror thing. Because
I swear to God, when you say horror, it sounds like you're saying horror.
I do say horror. I can't get that next
John
part.
Candy.
Horror.
Okay.
When we started dating, you asked me if I liked horror films, and I said no.
Because you don't like supernatural films.
If it can happen,
it's the age difference.
131-year-old house.
It's the age difference.
I don't want to fucking say
I grew up with slashers. I grew up with Scream.
Stab people.
I grew up with, I know what you did last summer. You grew up with Paranormal Activity.
Okay, and also, my grandma raised me, and she was
Offense.
a big murder mystery person, and so
You grew up with fucked up shit.
Just fell right into murder shows. Like, I didn't know the difference between Law and Order and Scream. People got stabbed. It was fine. We tried to solve the mystery. Dewey's a cop. Okay,
so let's
fun facts.
Let's jump into the episode.
Fun facts. Long story
short. I think what we just did was a conversation about what this whole month's gonna look like, because we're gonna have a lot of conversations about horror where we disagree, because upcoming
There's an age difference,
and
opinion difference, clearly.
you don't love horror.
No. Okay.
And this month is going to change her mind.
The long story short of the Scream. Did I say trilogy before? That's wrong. Scream quadrupilogy. That's not a word. Is somebody wears a mask and kills a bunch of teenagers.
Yeah, that's a long story short.
That's a long story short. Fun
Thanks
fact.
for tuning in.
That end. So Courtney Cox's bangs in Scream 3 are
Rough.
like the things I remember about Scream. Ghostface, Courtney Cox's bangs. Apparently
Drew Barrymore.
Apparently
Can we wait? Do you even have this as a fun fact?
Yes, that's why you need to not interrupt
Okay.
me.
Okay.
David Arquette took the blame for the bangs. They said he got the idea from a singer in the 80s named Betty something or other, and that was the whole... He basically took the fall for the whole bangs thing. Which
The bangs weren't good.
I thought was sweet of David Arquette, because they're not married anymore.
Well, and with that divorce, I'm Team Arquette.
Fun fact number 2, the ghost face mask was found in a potential filming location, and they kind of just went with it. There's more information on that.
So what you're saying is it's similar to the movie The Mask, where Jim Carrey just happens to find a mask in a pit?
I haven't seen The Mask since I was like 5.
Jesus Christ.
Is that a horror movie? Does that
Could be.
qualify?
It could be.
Because this is a horror comedy.
Scream's a horror comedy?
Isn't it? Isn't it?
I
It's not a
mean,
horror comedy? Sorry.
It depends on what age you are. It depends on what age you are. When you and I watch it, obviously it is fairly funny. But you're not even paying attention to the conversation we're having on film.
I broke my laptop, and so my information's on my phone. So I'm going to be looking at my lap. And usually I don't do that because that is not professional. Not professional podcasting. Scream, my last fun fact, but this isn't fun. Scream was based on some real murders that happened.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I legit didn't know that. That's cool.
Back in
Not
1998.
Not
No,
cool.
it's not.
That's not cool.
No, it's not. But I thought I'd drop that one because I didn't know that either. And that's kind of intense because of the whole scream, stab, whatever situation. Okay, so
that's the end of the fun facts. We're moving on to now our synopsis of the 4 films, which is, of course, written... The first one was written by Kevin Williamson. I believe most of them actually were. Let me double check real quick. Let me check my facts.
Of course, the director was Wes Craven.
Yes, all 4 were Kevin Williamson, directed by Wes Craven. The first one stars Neve Campbell, Drew Barrymore, and we'll get there. Skeet Ulrich, Courtney Cox, Rose McGowan, Matthew Lillard, David Arquette. And the reason why we need to talk about Roger Jackson is something that's also close to your heart. Something I never saw. Who's Roger Jackson, honey?
He does the voice of Ghostface on the phone. Phone only.
Right.
What's yours?
Don't.
Scary movie.
That's horrible.
Whatever. Okay. He was also the voice of Mojo Jojo on Powerpuff Girls. Anyways, so the little tidbit that you have about Drew Barrymore isn't like a little known tidbit anymore.
Yeah, she kind of spilled the beans on Hot Ones.
Regardless, it's interesting.
Yeah, she was offered the role of Sidney Prescott and decided to take the role of the iconic Casey Becker, which I think was a good career move because now she is one of the most famous horror girls of all time.
I don't know that much about horror,
but you know that murder
but
scene.
that's like an iconic kill scene.
Yeah. It's like Jamie Lee Curtis taking the role of Michael Myers' sister. No, she's only one person. But, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis's career probably wouldn't have gone where it went. And the thing was that Drew Barrymore's career was already taking off. She chose this because she knew what it would do for her legacy rather than her short-term
Oh,
gain.
Barrymore is kind of an interesting person.
Yeah.
Whoever did her, like, whatever it's called on SNL this week, that was a good impression. That was this week. That's relevant. I can say that.
Yes, I'm not arguing with you.
Okay, so Scream begins in the town of...
Woodsboro.
Okay.
Woodsboro, California. And we're really focused on Sidney Prescott, Billy Loomis, Neil Prescott, Gail Weathers, Deputy Dewey, Stewart, and a cast of others, which is really Nev Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, Courtney Cox, Matthew Lillard, David Arquette, and the like. These are really our core cast of characters for this first film, where Sydney's mother has been murdered, and now a string of murders are happening again, kind of focus on Sydney.
And she's, of course, in high school, which is important because these are all, like, dumb high schooler kids.
Right, well, Kevin Williamson did a lot of these high school horror films, like Teaching Miss Tingle. I Know What You Did Last Summer, those kind of things, which we will cover this month.
I mean, I remember me as a teenager. I'd want to kill me, too.
Oh, yeah. Teenagers
Kill
suck.
some teenagers. It's fine. Sydney gets a phone call, just like Casey Becker had done or had gotten, and so
Correct.
We know off the bat this is going to be scary, and this isn't going to be good for dear Sydney.
Dewey's sister, of course, is Rose McGowan, and she has so much disrespect for Dewey that when she pulls him out of the fucking police station, it shuts everything down. She's roasting him at his work, and no one's paying attention to what they're supposed to be doing. Kind of reflects a lot on our police system, if you will. What I do want to talk about, though, is Randy works at Blockbuster.
Oh yes, they have a big scene in Blockbuster, and it's just... What's that
Matthew
feeling?
Lillard discussing horror movies and the concepts, which is a constant theme throughout this series. Like, the first one really does set up the entire series because it's going to be consistent, where they're kind of reflecting on horror movies as an entire genre. It's not just... This movie isn't a movie about this killer. It's a movie reflecting on all horror movies, and I think that's really fun. Like, Wes Craven has been a god of horrors for years, and this was kind of his chance to have fun with it.
This was Cabin in the Woods before Cabin in the Woods happened.
Good point. This movie was a lot of horror movies before they existed. This was a lot of the modern day cinema that we get, where they're horror movies, but you can also kind of laugh at them, and you don't have to take them too seriously. Scream 1 is scary. The rest go downhill.
Back to Scream 1.
And it's not because of bad writing. I'm going to even argue that Scream 2 is almost as good as Scream 1, and Scream 4 is damn near. Scream 3 was not great, but I think the story of Scream is amazing, and that's why we're having a conversation about it, and that's why we're not necessarily sticking to the story, because we don't fucking have to. We're discussing Scream.
A couple people get murdered, like the principal, and basically
When you say the principal, do you mean the Fonz?
Yeah, the Fonz. Sorry, how disrespectful of me.
Yeah.
The Fonz is murdered, stabbed, screaming his iconic knife. This is how old I am. Back in the day of elementary school, when people used to dress up as Ghostface, we were allowed to have the Scream knife with their costume at school.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
No, that's bad.
Apparently you can't even be on Zoom school and do that anymore. Did you hear about that?
No.
Well, that's not a movie podcast. That's real life.
Okay. The kids, the high schoolers have a party. They have a get-together. I think it's
Remember when you could do
interesting.
that?
Yeah, before quarantine. That Dewey and, of course, Courtney Cox, who's the character? What's her name?
Gail Weathers.
She is the reporter.
Yes.
She's kind of... She wants to use Dewey
because he has, obviously police are allowed to be, the police are guarding Sydney. She wants to get the report first. She wants the lead on the story, so she's using her ties with the police department, aka Dewey's naiveness.
Naivete.
And they go into this high school party. Nobody cares that there's a cop there for some reason, because that's how not seriously they take Cop Dewey. I thought that was just weird.
Yeah, well, he's a recent high school graduate.
25.
Yeah, but in this movie, for some reason, there's... What is your mouth doing?
The video matters.
I know, I'm just saying, like, what were you doing?
It's just...
Dewey is a fuck up, and no one takes him seriously, so they keep drinking and partying, and a bunch of people die.
We see Rose McGowan die in the garage door.
Yeah.
Garage door. Tidbit, they said that she was too skinny to stay in the dog opening, so they had to, like, nail her shirt.
Humble brag.
Yeah, humble brag for Rose McGowan.
She looked good in this movie.
I knew her from Charmed.
I knew her from fucking Marilyn Manson.
Literally.
So, yeah, that's kind of Scream 1, really. Like, we're not trying to cover scene by scene. You guys have seen this fucking movie. It's been out since, what, 95?
96.
I was close.
Sydney finally fucks Billy, which is kind of like one of the leading up to the climax.
Why she becomes a victim. Like, you should have known better.
She broke one of the horror movie rules, as were explained during the party. And then
by
basically...
Jamie Kennedy.
Shit goes down. Ghostface is slashing throats. We see...
This is when he hits his berserker mode. Really, like, as a serial killer, this is kind of when he goes nuts and starts killing everyone. Everyone that gets near him, anyways. And this is when we find out who the killer is. Oh, shocker. It's a guy named Skeet. Fucking asshole. It's Billy Loomis and fucking Stewart, Matthew Lillard, who I think is a low-key horror icon that we don't discuss enough. I've been watching a horror movie a day for this month, and one of the first ones I watched was 13 Ghosts. Matthew Lillard is great. And if he doesn't come back for fucking Scream 5... I'm gonna shit my pants.
I read something that said that he didn't like his performance in Scream. Well, didn't he die? How would he come back?
Okay.
Presumably.
Okay.
My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me. That was improv. Ablabbed.
Ablabbed?
Ad-libbed.
Ad-libbed. Yes.
I have to fuck up at least once per episode.
Ablabbed. What I'm saying is, if he had never taken the role of fucking Shaggy, we'd still be getting horror movies with him. I don't know. Alright. He dies. Skeet Ulrich dies. Sydney survives. Gail survives. Dewey survives. Is that it?
And then they go to college, and Scream 2 begins.
Well, yeah. And in Scream 2, I almost liked as much as Scream 1.
We start with Jada Pinkett
Smith and her boyfriend.
They're in a movie theater. This is one of the scenes that I remember from being in second grade, because and
it's another one of the most iconic openings of horror movies. Argue with me.
I've not been able to walk into a public restroom peacefully, basically since then, because clearly I was too young to watch this, but also It's a good horror scene, because he gets stabbed in the fucking temple through the bathroom door, like the toilet door, closet, this British people water closet.
And then, nice diversity.
Yes.
And then Jada Pinkett gets murdered in the fucking theater. That's not really what's important. What's important is the fact that Sydney has gone to college and she's fucking callous as shit to these bastards calling her and making these threatening calls because she knows the movie's coming out. What's the movie? Stab! So Stab is based on Scream, and Stab comes out in Scream 2, and that's how the rest of the series kind of works, where it's kind of following the series of films as we progress in this series of films.
Well, as we learn in Scream 4, the first stabs are based the first 3 are the original stab movies, and then Sydney was going to
your mic.
I-
People are gonna
I
be
know.
mad. People are gonna yell at you.
Okay, that's fine. You
They're
had
gonna
to
say,
interrupt me for that?
Don't bang the mic, Jordan.
The first 3 stabs were based on Sydney, and then Sydney got mad, so they had to just make shit up. But
Right.
also, Gail and Dewey are in Scream 2 as well, and Gail, of course, her big tiff with Sydney during Scream 1 was Gail wrote a book about Sydney's mom's murder.
Right.
But clearly, they both survived Ghostface at this point, so they're
Well,
okay
and
with
Gail
one another.
kinda saved him a little bit at the end of Scream 1.
Okay.
Shaking head time.
Okay.
I don't know what this means.
Right
Well,
off the
this is
bat,
when we're introduced to Cotton Weary. And that's important because he was the one that was originally accused of murdering Sydney's mom. And he didn't do it. It was
fucking Skeet.
Billy Loomis and Stewart that murdered Sydney's mom, as we find out. So Cotton Weary gets let out, which of course is played by Liev Schreiber, and he's fucking great. He's very good in this movie.
He obviously isn't having a good time because people all think he's a murderer.
Right, so he's really got to defend himself, and he's trying to get Sydney to agree to some kind of interview so that he can,
Clear his name, basically.
defend himself.
I
Which
don't
is
really
fair.
blame him, but Sydney's kind of a bitch.
Sydney's a
Hot
bitch.
take. Sydney's a bitch.
Sydney's a bitch. I'm team Cotton. To be honest, like, this motherfucker got sent to jail for a year for murdering someone that he didn't murder, and now the only chance he really has to get to go back to a normal life is Sydney talking to him for 30 fucking minutes, and she can't fucking do that?
I don't remember who. It's a big name interview. And he
Diane
said she
Sawyer.
would get. Oh, there we go. And they would get paid too.
$10,000 a piece.
They're college
And Sydney
students.
Can't do it. You guys call Sydney your final girl. I call Sydney your final bitch. Hot takes from Long Story
Shots
Short.
fired at Sydney.
Fuck Nev Campbell. She should have been stabbed in the goddamn head.
All I was
I'm
gonna
getting fired
say.
up. Cotton Weary later we find out is a douchebag. But honestly, Scream 2, Cotton Weary, if he had been the killer, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm on his side. I'm calming down. I'm a little mad. You discuss this while I practice my breathing exercises.
People get stabbed.
A
That's
lot of people get stabbed. And it's Timothy goddamn Olyphant who does it.
Oh, I
The
forgot
dude,
about
the
that.
goddamn sheriff from Deadwood.
Yes. He.
Okay, what
Let's-
was your hot take?
That-
Before we discuss, like, how
Okay,
he's a
you
dick.
hear me go off on Henry Cavill. Timothy Olyphant is hot. Like now.
Not good looking then.
What is that? That's weird. He aged. He's like
That's what I'm hoping
some
for.
fine wine happened.
That's what
he aged
that's
into
what
it.
I'm, like, rolling the dice. I'm growing the hair out now. We're getting the beard going. Maybe when I'm 50, I'll be a fucking salt and pepper silver fox.
I thought also what was interesting was in Scream 1 before Skeet, Billy, and Shaggy Stewart ultimately
Feeling woozy, man.
ultimately got caught. They said this is scary because we have no motive.
Right,
And-
which is kind of a theme throughout the series.
Scream
except
2.
for boom.
Who we thought was a reporter because this person had ran into Gail previously
Right.
was there at the end with Timothy Olyphant, and she said that her motive was revenge.
Right, because she is Billy Loomis's mother.
So shout out to
Calling
Jason.
to Friday the 13th, the first one, of course, which is where Jason's mom's a killer.
So that was
That's what
interesting.
many people don't know about Friday the 13th Part 1, is Jason didn't exist in it, other than a name.
Okay, so Scream 3.
Wait, we didn't talk about the best part of Scream 2.
What? What is that? Oh, should we talk about the 90s fashion with these pastel colors and all these thin-ass eyebrows? Thank you, 90s style. That is why my eyebrows are fucked up now. Everybody has these fluffy, voluptuous eyebrows. And
I wanted to talk about Dwayne Martin, who played Joel, who was the cameraman for Gale Weathers.
Joel was the only quotable character in the whole entire film, I'd say. Special K, X, not Malcolm.
He also had a great line of, "Got it, / the guy ain't in the union no more." Talking about videographers that worked for Gale Weathers because, of course, the first one was murdered. And guys, he's great.
Did he get murdered?
Scream 3.
Okay.
Sucks.
Scream 3, we are introduced to Courtney Cox's
Bangs.
aka Fringe. It's bad.
We're introduced to Dewey. He's dating Courtney Cox's double for the movie series. He's
Scream 3 is more centered around Stab 3.
Yeah, and the killer's who? Let's just jump to it. I'm fucking done
He's
with this.
the main actor in Stab.
No, he's the director because he's Sydney's brother. Remember? And
Yes. Fuck.
he also plays
He drops-
Sean in Scrubs. And his character in Scrubs is much more interesting than his character in Scream 3. Scream 3 sucks. Scream 3 just was not great. I don't even want to, review it. Guess what? Sydney's brother found her and started murdering people. Boo!
Okay, so a little more into that. Sydney's brother at the end reveals that he had went to Sydney's mom before her death, and basically, she
She was a slut. Boring
She
plot
gave
twist.
him away as a child, but kept Sydney. As a child, I know how that felt because my bio dad kept my stepsister, but gave away me, his biological daughter.
Well,
I don't
that
know.
makes me feel insensitive.
Whatever, it's fine. But so Sydney's brother is kind of revealing this to Sydney, and yeah, he's the killer because he's pissed off about this. That happened
It's
to me.
fair.
I don't feel like killing people. I really don't. I mean, maybe Sydney by the end of Scream 3.
It's fair, but it just wasn't a great story.
It was the kind of killer, at least they made a killer kind of wrap around, a familial killer. Scream 2, I guess that was a Jason kill, so that's fine. Whatever, let's move on to Scream 4.
I guess if you're gonna make a reference like that, then Scream 3 really is kind of like a nod towards Halloween, because Michael Myers is Jamie Lee Curtis's brother.
Oh shit.
So maybe that's where he was going.
Maybe that's yeah.
And it's fine. Honestly, I don't have a lot of complaints about this series. I just think 3 is the weakest one. For me, it goes 1, 4, 2, 3.
That sounds like math to me. Whoa.
4 is shot 15 years later, and it stars. It's a brand new decade.
4 is great.
4's fun.
Okay, this was fun for me because I've never seen this, and so 4 does this crazy thing where you think you're getting the intro. What's it called? What's it called on The Office before they play the
Cold open.
Yeah, you think you're getting a cold open.
Which
and
all the
it's
screens have
hidden
done.
in another cold open, and it's hidden in another cold open.
And the first one, of course, involves I can't remember the 2 actors, but they're watching. The 2 actors I'm talking about are Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell, and they're watching this horror movie. And Kristen Bell bitches that it's predictable, and Anna Paquin fucking kills her. And that's the intro to this
That you
movie.
got them backwards, but yes. But we see the big names too, and we're like, these bitches ain't gonna last. Not only are they blonde, and they're... Because they do that. The dumb
Right.
blonde joke is one of the horror rules. You can't be the dumb
Right.
blonde.
And,
Sorry, if
that's the
you're
intro
blonde.
to Scream 4, where we're following Sydney's niece. And Sydney's niece is basically bitter at Sydney because she doesn't get to have her own life.
Everything's been about Sydney and their family, even though that she doesn't directly know Sydney that well. But
Which
of
makes
course,
sense.
Sydney's mom was murdered, and that's probably your mom's sister or something or other. So yeah, they were upset about that. And it begins with her getting the phone call.
Right.
And she automatically hangs up because, let's talk about this, 15 years later, we don't just pick up the phone when somebody calls. I will type that shit into Google before I pick up your phone call if I don't know you.
That's right.
These 90s was a different time. We used to just pick up the phone, no caller ID. We didn't care. We'd even, like, talk to them. We were happy that somebody was calling. Like, hello, as long as you weren't a telemarketer, like, it was a different time. Anyway, Ghostface calls. He's creepy. Creepy voice.
Yeah.
And, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sydney's friend, who is, she's concerned that Sydney's back in town on her book tour, because Sydney has now wrote a book about her own experiences, and she's like, that bitch, it was the other bitch. It was the other girl that said this. That is the angel of darkness. Murder follows her where she goes. And so that was like a foreshadowing of course, that them getting murdered.
You know, like, 4 movies deep, we probably don't need that foreshadowing. We're assuming some bitches are gonna get sliced.
I think it goes into the cliches again because we see like them playing with the knives on the counter during the cold opening and stuff like that. Like,
I'm so scared of you banging that mic.
I'm trying not to. It's only happened
Your hands are getting
like
wild.
once since you told me not to do that anymore.
Yeah, no, the 4th one is the most tongue-in-cheek of all 4. Like, it's the
almost
most
Scary
comedy.
Movie.
Yeah, it's the
Like,
most comedy version of Scream that has come out. 5, I think, this is my prediction, I think 5 is going to be scary.
That'd be nice.
Because 4 had really, really great sequences, but it wasn't really scary because it was joking the whole time, which I'm fine with. I loved 4. Like I said, for me, 1, 4, 2, 3.
I think 4 was interesting because, again, we're following a group of high schoolers. Like, Sydney was around, Gail was around, Dewey was around, but they weren't necessarily the main characters.
Their own story. And then we find out that Lucy Hale, a.k.a. Sherry, Sydney's niece, is the killer the whole time. That was a good twist. It was a good twist. Like, Sydney, like you said earlier, should have been the killer at some point. It would have made more sense. And they took that with Lucy Hale, and they said, yeah, you're right.
So,
this person that seems like they shouldn't be connected to the murdering is the murderer. It was good. Wes Craven did a great job.
It's interesting that they said that this cousin or niece or whatever had enough psychological damage just from being related to Sydney that person's going to be a serial killer. Sydney, you're fine still because you're immortal. You're okay. Sydney gets stabbed by
niece,
Sherry.
Right?
I think.
Yeah. She gets stabbed by Sherry.
And they're in the hospital when it all kind of goes down, the final scene.
Right, and this scene, honestly, like, even, I don't know, I almost view Scream, okay, let's get to the end of it, let's wrap it up, because I have some conversations that I want to have with you.
Gail.
I don't know why I'm finger waggling. Once again, check out our YouTube, the Long Story Short podcast.
Gail is married to Dewey at this point, which is sweet. They're all in the...
That's literally like the opening, like, 4 minutes.
Okay, well, the point is we're all in the same room at the end of the movie, and I'm trying to explain why everybody is here.
Okay.
Gail has been stabbed by Ghostface. We think Gail might be dead. Sydney was in the ICU. Dewey, of course, is the police, so he went to Sherry's bedside to
he's a sheriff at this point.
Let her know that he's the sheriff in town. Good job, Dewey. To let Sherry know that Sydney might survive, which is supposed to be good news to Sherry because Sydney is family, but Sherry's the killer. So the minute Dewey leaves, Sherry's like, shit, I gotta go kill Sydney in the ICU. So they're in the ICU fighting. It's a good fight scene. Yeah. And Sydney fucking rubs these, what are those called? Defibrillator? Yeah, paddles together and defibrillates her head.
And somehow she still survives.
I don't know.
Once again... Scream is Wes Craven. Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit into the weeds. Scream series is Wes Craven's tribute to the horror genre. A killer is not killed that easy. And that's why he allowed Sherry to be fucking defibrillated.
Well, that's also
and have her brain scrambled and still survive.
I get to butt into your
Yeah,
comment.
of course.
In Scream 1, we were told that one of the horror rules is there's always somebody who's nearly immortal that you can't kill regularly. So
Right.
Sydney defibrillates her head thinking she killed her, turns to Dewey and Gale saying she's not immortal, and Sherry gets back up. Dewey has to shoot her several times, and then we're all screaming, all of us watching, in the head! Because zombies have happened since then. But this is
Right. Sydney, though,
Prior
has to
to
remind
zombies.
Dewey.
in the head.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sydney. Finally, we agree. Straight to the dome.
We agree after 4 movies, 7 hours and 8 minutes of Scream.
We have to touch on the other kind of arc that Sherry has. Is one of her things is she doesn't want to be this murderer because she's fucked up. She wants this murderer to be a murderer because she sees the fame that... Okay, she doesn't... I was wrong. She doesn't want to be a murderer. She knows that you can get fame by escaping murder, just like Sydney has, and she wants that
Right.
fame, and obviously she's a dumb high school girl, so she thinks that this is how she's gonna get it. And at the end of the movie, one of the last things we see is the reporters still thinking that Sherry's the hero, and they're all like, we're gonna interview the hero, this is America's hero! And as we find out, you know, Sydney has to cap her ass because she's the murderer.
Right.
The end!
That's Scream 1 through 4.
Thank you for voting in our poll.
Cannot wait for Scream 5. We'll have to do a special episode just for that. Let's jump into the ratings, honey. All right. Scream 1. We're going to kind of do this fast, and then we'll do the reviews. Scream 1 got a 7.2 on IMDb. It got a 78% by critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a 79% by audience on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm going higher. I'm going 85% for Scream 1.
I think that's a pretty high...
I think Scream 1 is one of the best horror movies that's been made.
I think... routinely, they aren't high
Horror
school
movies,
scores.
yeah,
They're
no.
like comedies. That's why comedy and horror, another similarity. But so I think like low 80s is good.
Scream 2 got a 6.2 on IMDb, 81% by critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 57% by audience on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm going with critics. That Scream 2 is my second favorite.
I say cut the difference.
Scream,
80's too high on Scream 2.
3 got a 5.6 on IMDb, and 39% by Rotten Tomatoes by the critics, and 37% by the audience. Yep.
Yeah.
Just plain agree.
Agree. I've never agreed before.
It wasn't
I agree
great.
today.
It wasn't bad because it's attached to Scream.
If
But
it was its own movie, it would be trash.
It'd be trash. Scream 4 got a 6.1 on IMDb, a 60% by critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 55% by the audience. I disagree. I'm giving that one at least a 75%.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's go into the user reviews and actually like dive a little bit deeper into what we're saying. Scream 1. Moon Spinner 55 says flabby and depressing comedic slasher flick. Fifth-rate screenplay about teenagers terrorized by an all-too-clever serial killer is rampant with unpleasantness and the TV movie-style craftsmanship. It is one of director Wes Craven's worst efforts, but of course he's laughing all the way to the bank at critics happily gutted like a fish and left hanging for all to see. Oh, I jumped ahead. Sorry. Laughing all the way to the bank at critics who fail to chuckle at such nihilistic and exploitative aspect such as Drew Barrymore happily gutted like a fish and hanging for all to see. Most of the acting is... What's that word? Vacus?
I don't
Mocious?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think it's a real word. And the cruddy color and clanging technical setups just reek of bad taste. It shows the filmmaker to be without much talent or joy for making movies, and yet it's all so smug and unreal. Wow.
Vacuous.
Vacuous.
Meaning having or showing lack of thought.
Okay, Moon Spinner. That's like your opinion, man. However, Dylan Knodge says, with Scream, Wes Craven reinvented and revitalized the slasher genre with this modern horror classic. Scream is funny, clever, and scary as a fright masked knife maniac stalks high school students, a beautiful love letter to the horror movie that came before it. A truly classic horror film. What a genius Wes Craven was. Brilliant filmmaking defines 90s horror. I agree with him 110,000%.
You don't mention 90s horror without saying Scream.
You can't.
And also, that's why children, 90s kids like me, sometimes think Ghostface is called Scream, because Scream is the word.
Well, and it's technically the name of the painting. But you're right. It's because it's what you associate it with. And if you can't understand what Wes Craven was doing with this movie, then don't fucking watch it, dipshit.
He made worse movies.
Yeah. Pork Chop Express says about Scream 2, this one stinks. Note to self, these movies are horrible. As the first Scream was supposedly a fresh new genre movie, a sequel was expected, but they only get worse, fellas. All these movies are predictable. You know who is gonna get it and win. They try and make these movies have twists by making the killer have some sort of relationship to the lead, played by Neve Campbell. At first I blamed Wes Craven for these movies, but then I realized it was screenwriter Kevin Williamson. Why are these movies so dumb? Could it be that he used to write Dawson's Creek? Why is he even trying to ruin the horror genre? Because of him, every independent film company is making these stupid teen horror flicks. Where is Jason when you need him to rid us of all these dumb characters?
Guess what, Pork Chop? It's 2020 and people are still making dumb teenage high school horror movies.
And they won't stop. Thank you.
No.
Nichols 905-280-54911 says, clever sequel that plays to all the same beats as the first film. The strength is Williamson and Craven, who inject clever plotting and style. Slasher films have never looked so magnificent. This is on a tier with the first film and feels more like an extension instead of the missed direction of number 3. Sequel is like part 2, 10 out of 10. Yeah, I'm going more with him.
I guess I agree.
Yeah, 2 was really good. 2 was really good.
It was an extension.
3, I'm curious to see what they have to say. All right. Moro316 says, surely one of the worst sequels ever. This film should never have seen the light of day. It's only the movie studio's greed that allowed this dire film to be released. Everything about it sucks, from the plot to the fact that even Courtney Cox looks awful in it. Where did she get that haircut?
I told you!
Wes Craven should just deny he directed this and say it was someone he knew nothing about. Just make sure you never see this film, and if you do, make sure you do not spend any money on it. 1 out of 10.
Thinking about it now, I think that they were probably trying to tie Stab in.
Yeah, it didn't work.
It just was weird how it focused around another movie in a movie. It didn't.
4 did it well. Buffy Man says the best of the trilogy. Wow. Okay. Buffy Man says the best of the trilogy. Scream 3 really rocks. It's so good. It's the best one of the trilogy. Although the first one is awesome, this one's too. Neve Campbell has improved a lot as an actress. And the Courtney Cox, David Arquette relationship is so funny. I'm so glad they got married in real life. God, I'm sorry, guys. In real life, at first I thought that Sydney hadn't a storyline because she's not in the movie like for the first 45 minutes. But in that time, the Dewey-Gale relationship is very well developed, and Resting Hour is mainly about Sid. Well, I just want to say, go see it. It's the best one yet. 10 out of 10. Buffy Man.
No.
Interesting opinion.
Interesting name.
Patrick303 says about Scream 4, horrible. This was the cheesiest movie I've ever laid my eyes upon. I felt raped of my money when I left the theaters. I wanted to cry because it was so bad. I gave it a chance. I did. I swear. But it just didn't work out in the end. I will let you see it for yourself, but I recommend waiting for it to come on HBO or better yet, something like TNT. Ghostface must not go on anymore. For the sake of this country's cinematic reputation, we need to start producing real horror movies, not children's playthings. These sequels do nothing further than to further the actual franchise. I teach high school seniors and all of the students who saw this movie felt the exact same way. They voiced that they wanted their money back. It was not scary. I was not on the edge of my seat. There was no jumping moments. It was all very predictable, sadly so. I wanted it to be so good because there is a lack of good horror movies out, and Wes Craven produced the damn movie. Is he going senile? I mean, that is the guy who created Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, isn't it? Then he turns around and churns this out. Wake up, Wes Craven, we need you. 1 out of 10.
R.I.P. Wes Craven. R.I.P.
Patrick is very passionate about the opinions of high schoolers.
Sounds like he would probably be a cool school teacher, though. I wonder what he teaches. Also, Buffy, man. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. No wonder he likes Scream 3 the best. The one that was, had a Dawson Creek like feel as the other one
with. No, Scream 2 was with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
Who also was not in Dawson's Creek, but Joshua Jackson was. So Scream 2 should have been his favorite.
Buffy, man. Okay, so Scream
4,
10 out of 10s.
Daniel Carpentry 284196 says everything a horror movie should be Scream 4 or Scream 4, as some prefer to title it, is everything a horror movie should be. None of the gore porn from Saw and the Hostel type movies. I saw Scream 4 last night, and in my opinion, this movie was equally good, if not better, than the first Scream. Suspenseful, gory, and hilarious. It definitely made up for the train wreck that was Scream 3. Throughout the movie, the entire full-packed cinema was screaming, laughing, and at the end, everyone was applauding. I need to go back to the cinema and watch this again. It most definitely exceeded my expectations. If you are a horror fan, then this movie will not disappoint you. I will recommend it to all. I rate Scream 4 10 out of 10. Daniel, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I saw this in theaters as well. And you're right, it was an entire audience experience versus what some of these other films have been, where it's kind of divided. Some of the shit you're not enjoying as much as the other people. And films like the Saw franchise and the Scream franchise, they brought in audiences year after year, and it was fun to watch them as a group.
My Bloody Valentine was fun.
My Bloody Valentine was a blast.
Yeah.
We're, of course, talking about the remake, not the original.
Oh, no. 3D remake. The 3D was cool.
So we watched all 4 Scream films, and that I am giving the series as a whole an 80%. I would have given it a 90, but Scream 3 really took it back for me.
78%.
That's fair, because I want to bring up a quote that you said at the beginning of this series, which was, I like it more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun series. It's a good horror film. All 4 of them, really, like, you gotta watch 3 to watch all 4.
Yes.
You may not like it, but you do.
I wanted to talk about the Saw reference because when he said, gore porn, that was a quote that they used in Scream 4 because at the time the gore porn was big.
I think it was at least after Saw 2.
Yeah, this was an interruption.
Saw was a phenomenal horror movie. Saw 2 was a giant step back in that series.
But like they said, Hostel, Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know what else came around that time period, but like that
My
was
Bloody Valentine,
so
I think, was around that time
for
too.
them to have a horror movie that was slasher, not gore. I mean, gory for being stabbed.
It was gory, but it wasn't.
It's not the same thing.
Right. And I think that proves the intelligence of the script.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Scream.
What have we been watching? Because we've been
So
watching some.
much.
Let's talk about. Do we talk about Scare Me or do we leave Scare Me?
We tweeted about Scare Me. We can't talk about Scare Me for a full hour.
Okay, so
Full hour.
we can talk about Scare Me now.
Yeah. Well, let's
Scare
talk about all
Me!
the horror movies we've been watching besides the one that's we're reviewing. Scare Me was written and directed and starring Josh Rubin, a very funny comedic writer from Funny or Die. And it wasn't what we expected, but it was I loved it.
I think this lines up because it was another like horror cliche movie where they didn't like
it was
feed
done on
you
a
the
small
cliches. They allowed to make fun of themselves while they were doing it. Long story short of Scare Me,
It's about two writers.
two writers who the power goes out and they're off doing writers retreats, so they go into one cabin and basically tell each other
Scary
stories.
Which
And
we all did growing up when we went camping.
of course, one of the writers is like a famous author, and
The other one's kind of an asshole.
yes, but
I prefer
the movie,
asshole.
how it's done, is interesting because they're literally telling each other the stories, but they'll like do things to the camera angles or sound effects to like bring into the horror aspect. So
And they do some special effects that like make the stories come to life. It's significantly different than what you expect it to be.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple, it really, really is.
I laughed. It's horror comedy again. I laughed.
It was good.
There was violence.
Yeah, that was weird.
It was a little. I don't know.
It was different.
I think you should watch
6 out
it.
of 10. It's on Shudder.
Yeah.
I give it a 6 out of 10, and that's not me shitting on it. I think it was good. I think it's worth your time, but it's not what you're going to go into expecting.
It didn't scare me.
I watched
So that's why.
I watched 3 from Hell, which wrapped up the Rob Zombie House of a Thousand Corpses trilogy. And like I told you, it was very good. I think it might be my favorite of the 3, but it felt more like an action movie than a horror movie. I didn't necessarily get the horror tag. I've been rewatching Reanimator, which you hate.
I should just read it. I wouldn't probably hate it as much.
Yeah, it's an H.P. Lovecraft story. What else did we watch?
I don't know. I was excited to talk about Scare Me.
Did you have more you want to say about
No,
that?
it's good.
It was good. Check it out. Watch it. It's on Shudder. I think that's our episode, honey.
Well, there it is.
What else? Like, I don't think we've been doing much else, have we?
No, we had 4 fucking Scream movies to watch.
4 of them.
7 hours and 8 minutes.
That's right. I think I watched... Hang on. I watched one other thing.
I'll just be quiet so I can edit it out. We're probably not out of the video. Because... it's fine.
3, 2, 1. I also watched 30 Days a Night. The Josh Hartnett. Right?
You watched it.
Yeah. Fuck. Okay, edit this too. Yeah, Josh Hartnett film about zombies in Barrow, Alaska, or vampires in Barrow, Alaska, and it's very good. That's really all I gotta say about that. Like, we're not gonna do a whole episode about it.
No. So Horror Month continues.
Yeah, it looks like next week we are going to be Shaun of the Dead. Fuck. And probably his counterpart, Dawn of the Dead. And that'll be very fun because Shaun of the Dead's probably one of my favorite horror comedy movies of all time. Anything you guys say about that?
No.
Anything else you want to say?
No.
Do you feel good?
Not during Horror Month.
All right, well, go to our Twitter at @TheLongStorySH1 or our Instagram at @the_long_story_short_podcast, and go to our YouTube, which is The Long Story Short Podcast. What are you doing?
There's going to be words on the screen, so for the viewers of the
Oh.
video, I was pointing out where the words are going to be.
She's
I also wanted to
Vanna
Vanna
Whiting
White it. Okay.
all right. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye.